Congresswoman Barbara Ali.
Wonderful, Kandaraji. Thank you so much for all of you who are here. We would like to take this opportunity to introduce a very dear friend of ours from California. Excuse me, can we all take a quick seat, please, real quickly? Gentlemen, please, take a quick seat. Please just take a quick seat. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, folks. Really, I know it's been a tiring day with the Hill advocating in front of members of Congress and senators, and you will hear about the historic effort. And in the interest of time, I would like to take a moment to introduce you for somebody who we in the California state hold with a tremendous amount of regard. Congresswoman Barbara Lee has been a champion of human rights and progressive values. And, you know, we've had the distinct privilege of having met her over dinner, where we shared about the concerns of this community. But I will tell you, we can say so much about Congresswoman Barbara Lee, but I will say this one thing. She has been a proponent against wars. She stood up against the war in Iraq, the endless wars that I think devastated the economy of this nation. At a moment in time when America's resolve has been tested across the world, she has been absolutely, fundamentally on the right side of ensuring that we take care of those in our country. There is an income inequality in this country. The reality is that many people have been left behind, but there is no bigger champion than our dear Congresswoman from Oakland. Once again, an honor and privilege, and please welcome her with the friendship our community has always given.
Well, thank you so much for that very warm introduction, and welcome to Capitol Hill, to the seat of democracy that we're still fighting to protect. But also, I just want to thank you so much, and I want to share a couple of thoughts with you, because the work that you're doing is so important, and especially as an African American. I have had the privilege to visit India, and I know the history of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. And I had the privilege to go to the museum and to pick up some books and photographs that no one in this country, unless you visit India, would know. And it's from that tradition that I learned so much about Indian culture, and I'm so glad of the kind of programs that you're running, because I really encourage you to continue to reach out to everyone here in our country, but especially to the Black community and to communities of color. So many people don't know about our ties. So many people in my community, in the Black community, don't know about the relationship between Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi. And so there's so much that we can learn from each other. And I just want to say what a privilege it is to be here, what a privilege it is for you to be here, and look forward to our continuing work together. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Barbara Lee. And we hope that we'll soon see her as a senator of California. So welcome everybody on behalf of Foundation for India and Indian Diaspora Studies. Today's event, it is US-India Partnerships. This is being hosted with the support of American Jewish committees. So we have Jason, who is the Chief of Policy, Strategy, Advocacy, and I'll be inviting him just after giving some brief background about FIIDS and what we did today. Foundation for India and Indian Diaspora Studies is Indo-American policy foundation. We do engage into policy monitoring, formation strategies, and also creating awareness about the policies. In this capacity, we do work with the congressional staffs, we do work with think tanks, and engage various communities to get and represent Indian American issues in the mainstream. Today is a very important historic day, in a way that advocacy for Indo-Americans is much more rare, and it is confined mainly to meet the local congressman or congresswoman at the local level and not at the Capitol Hill itself. So after almost 5 years, there is any Indian American organization doing advocacy in the Capitol Hill. In today's campaign, we have 68 delegates from 20 states, and we made 73 offices. Isn't it awesome? So we raised 3 issues. One is immigration. As we know that we have highly qualified Indo-Americans, they participate in the technology force and various other parts. However, they are choked by the various visa-related restrictions. One of them is a 7% country-wise quota limit on the permanent residency, employment-based permanent residency, and that has impacted and created a backlog for tens of years and for hundreds of thousands of Indian Americans who are waiting for the green card. The second issue is about H-1Bs. So H-1B is 85,000, 130,000 typically graduates come out and they fight for the H-1B, and there are about 300,000 job vacancies. They also fight for the same one, and that gets into the lotteries, and that impacts. Mainly, there is a talent drain from here, and then we lose the competitive advantage as a US, as a nation. Second issue has been around the US-India relations. Particularly, we picked up 2 issues. One is of the security concerns of USA as well as in India, which is ISET. Back in last year, in the month of May, President Biden and Prime Minister Modi, they launched an initiative called Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies. And it's very important from the national security point of view. So earlier this year, NSC and NSA of both the countries, they met, and they identified the areas and the task force. In that announcement, it specifically calls for relaxation of certain technologies from the export control. So that is another issue that we raised. It is very important to have the technological edge versus China. That's the main driver has been. The second issue that we call was about the Quad. So currently Quad is a US, India, Japan, and Australia. So Quad is a much more broader framework, but it's more different countries look at from the different perspective and more as an economic perspective from India point of view, but US really looks at it from the security point of view in that particular region. What we ask is that this Quad should have NATO-like framework, and it should also be expanded, not just limited to these 4 nations, but particularly in that the South China Sea or Indian Ocean rim, whenever if there is something happening, in that case we need to have the land and the sea support, and that needs to be expanded to the countries like South Korea or Philippines or even the Vietnam, Indonesia. With that case, it could be larger coalition. So that's the second thing that we asked for. And the last one was about the Indic traditions or the faiths from India, Hindu, Sikh, Jain, and Buddhist. There are the different traditions, different way to celebrate the festival, different lifestyle, but that get many times misunderstood. So more onto the expression of the religious tolerance and awareness, so that any type of a discrimination, biases, whether it is in the stereotyping at anywhere, it can be avoided. Much more to create a sense of Congress resolution on the welcoming all these different minority faiths. So these are the 3 issues that we raised today. We have also, in various activities we do the internship. We also create the awareness campaign within the community on the various issues and engage the elected officials and communities like Jewish community. We also work with the Afghan community, Armenians, various communities we engage. So with this, I would like to welcome Jason, who is Jason Isaacson.
Good evening. So not for the first time, and in the presence of esteemed friends from the U.S. Congress and administration and the Indian Embassy, and the many distinguished leaders of the Indian American community who are gathered here under the FIIDS banner, I want to take this opportunity to express the solidarity of my organization, the American Jewish Committee, with the cause of ever-burgeoning cooperation and partnership between India and the United States, as well as, of course, our support and admiration for the exciting growth in trade, investment, and strategic engagement between India and Israel, the most natural of friends. AJC has been committed and active for 3 decades in building ties with our countrymen in the Indian American community and advocating together for our shared interests. In the same spirit, we have reached out to and learned from and been graciously received by and exchanged perspectives with a range of officials of successive Indian governments with the intention of promoting closer alignment on key policy issues among sister democracies. I'm proud that AJC partnered closely with the Indian American community to successfully advocate passage of the U.S.-India Civil Nuclear Agreement in 2006, one of many instances over the years of our successful and dynamic and mutually beneficial partnership. Together, Indian Americans and American Jews have fiercely promoted the principles of pluralism and mutual respect, principles increasingly tested in the public arena. We have argued for the identification and prosecution of hate crimes, for generous but prudent immigration measures that contribute to American prosperity, for religious freedom and for adherence to minority faiths and for all of our countrymen. And together we have supported counterterrorism cooperation with sister democracies and expressed concerns about U.S. engagement with and sales of sophisticated arms to countries that do not share American values. Most recently, we have advocated together for the extension of H-1B visa status for Indian high-tech workers displaced in recent industry downsizing moves. And of course, we spoke out together for the confirmation, finally, of a U.S. ambassador to India, and we're so pleased that that finally happened just a few weeks ago. It is against this background of common principles and shared strategic objectives that I wish to highlight and celebrate the development of a transformative multilateral instrument launched in October 2021 during a visit to Washington by both the UAE Foreign Minister, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and the then Israeli Foreign Minister, Yair Lapid. It was in a meeting at the State Department, which Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar joined via video link, that the quadrilateral India, Israel, UAE, United States, or I2U2 framework for cooperation was first publicly discussed, and its objectives were set forth. The objectives are of 2 kinds. On one level, there are immediate needs this new programmatic partnership seeks to address. The first is food security, involving a $2 billion UAE fund to create environmentally sound, durable, climate-resistant food parks in India, an effort to avoid food supply disruptions of the sort caused by the war in Ukraine and other conflicts, and by the severe agricultural impacts of global warming. The second is energy, with a hybrid renewable energy plant in Gujarat. In both of these initial projects, Israeli and Emirati and Indian and American technology and resources will be fused together. Later projects will focus on water, health, space, transportation, and other sectors. On another level, of course, I2U2 isn't just about addressing specific needs of India and its Middle East partners. It's about India's very significant engagement in US-led initiatives that hold the promise of reshaping the Middle East, the widening of the circle of Arab-Israeli peace through the Abraham Accords of 2020 and the Negev Forum of 2022. These initiatives face challenges, as we all know. But India's wholehearted and visionary embrace of this effort, India's tangible contributions to this effort, to integrate Israel in the search for solutions to regional and global problems is of substantial importance. At the sub-ministerial I2U2 forum in Abu Dhabi just 2 months ago, the most recent formal gathering of framework principles, the commitment and enthusiasm of all 4 parties was palpable. The American head of delegation at that forum, Under Secretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy, and Environment, Jose Fernandez, made the case clearly. I2U2 provides a new regional platform to deepen economic integration and an affirmative agenda within the Middle East, Asia, and beyond, he told his colleagues. It serves as a model for promoting trusted regional partnerships that can create collaborative commercial opportunities and good-paying jobs. So on behalf of AJC, and in particular my colleague Nissim Rubin, who has long led our organization's outreach to the Indian American community, I want to identify with the Undersecretary's remarks, pledge AJC's continued commitment to the partnerships and friendships we have built together over many years, and wish you continued success and a good evening. Thank you.
I would like to welcome Congressman Matt Cartwright.
Well, good evening. I'm Congressman Matthew Cartwright of Pennsylvania. I'm here with my dear friend Alpesh Patel. Stand up and wave hello to the people. Alpesh Patel is a very highly respected businessman in my area. I've come to know him because he's not just a successful businessman, he is a community leader, somebody that young people, older people look up to and respect, and I'm proud to call him a friend. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about one thing we're doing together, but before I do, I want to say this. Thank you for having me here to address the Foundation for India and India Diaspora Studies. It's such an important thing that you do this. Here in America, we have 4.5 million Indian Americans, a huge percentage of your diaspora, I'm sure, and a very successful bunch, very highly educated, real achievers. And as a result, definitely the highest earning minority segment in the United States. It's something to be very proud of. We're all good capitalists here, and we're proud of that sort of thing. I also want to say it's entirely fitting and proper and appropriate that you had Congresswoman Barbara Lee address you first this evening. Let me tell you why. Barbara Lee from Oakland, California, she didn't brag about herself nearly enough. She's one of the greatest civil rights leaders we have in this country. And I tell you that advisedly because it's the civil rights leaders in this country who have the deepest respect for the Indian Americans. They're the ones who know about Mahatma Gandhi. They are the ones who understand what the deep debt of gratitude that our nation owes to Gandhi and his ideas of civil disobedience. It is the civil rights-minded Americans who understand that we learned from India how to fight for civil rights in this country. We did that. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. It wasn't just that Martin Luther King had a relationship with Gandhi, it was that he learned from him, and he studied him, and he studied his techniques. And so when I go places with Barbara Lee, for example, we went to Selma, Alabama to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, and John Lewis was with us, and Barack Obama was with us. And all of those people I just mentioned have the deepest respect for India because of what Mahatma Gandhi taught our nation. I wanted to tell you that. Now I, Matthew Cartwright from Pennsylvania, I am one of the 12 top members of the House Appropriations Committee, and we're very humble. We know we're the most important committee in Congress because we're the committee that allocates the money. All of the money that is spent by the United States federal government comes through our committee. And I'm the head of I'm the ranking Democrat on the Commerce, Justice, and Science subcommittee, and Doctor's nodding her head, and because she knows. My committee funds all of the Department of Commerce. It funds the entire Department of Justice, and maybe most importantly, it funds all of the sciences. And that includes the entire space program and the entire National Science Foundation. And if you don't know about the National Science Foundation, ask my friend the doctor over here. Dr. Sethuraman Panchanathan is the director of the National Science Foundation. And this is one of the most enthusiastic scientists I have ever met in my life. He is inquisitive. He is effervescent. He never stops talking about the advancements and the discoveries that can be made through science. We are very proud to have him, an Indian American, at the very pinnacle of the National Science Foundation. He's doing a wonderful job. But one of the things that we passed over the last couple of years was the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And I was there on the south lawn of the White House when my friend Joe Biden, you may have heard of him, Joe Biden. He's also from Scranton, Pennsylvania. You know that, don't you? And I was there to watch him sign into law the IIJA, and something that I fought very hard for because it's infrastructure. It's roads, it's bridges, it's water systems, it's sewer systems, railways, it's broadband internet for rural places. These are the things that grease the skids for American businesses and your businesses too. These things help you get your goods to market more cheaply. They help you deliver things faster, and they help your business go. And one of the things the reason I mention it is one of the things in the IIJA was $11.3 billion for abandoned mine land cleanup. Now, this is abandoned coal mine cleanup, and there are a lot of abandoned coal mines in the eastern United States, and they fall into 4 states: West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and my own home state of Pennsylvania. And what this means is that coal companies came in and they mined out all the coal. Once the coal was gone, they just left. They didn't clean up after themselves. And so these are big open sores on the landscape. Water courses into these mines, mixes with minerals, and comes out oxidized, comes out orange, and goes into the water systems. And I'm so proud that we invested the money to make this cleanup. But I mention that because Al Patel and I are working on one of the projects to do that. Where we live, it was anthracite coal, mined for about 100 years, between 1850 and 1950. And the towns, all throughout Scranton and Wilkes-Barre and all these little towns, Hazleton and Carbondale and Dixon City, they were all built over top of the mines. Miners could go to work through a door in their basement where they lived. It was astonishing. And this is still the case. These towns are still over top of these mines. And one of the things that we have with coal mines is abandoned mine waste. They call it culm, C-U-L-M. And you have these culm dumps all over the place, and it's very expensive to get rid of this culm, and it really ruins the landscape and the whole ambiance. Well, one of the things that Al Patel and I are working on is taking some of that IIJA money and remediating a place called Dixon City, Pennsylvania, where there are a lot of great people who live there, but there's this culm dump. We're going to get rid of the culm dump. We're going to build a senior center, a community center, and we're going to build senior high-rise apartments so that the seniors, there's more. We don't have enough housing in this country. and we're going to absolutely transform downtown Dixon City. This is the brainchild of your friend and mine, Alpesh Patel. Give Mr. Patel a round of applause. So I'm Congressman Matthew Cartwright from Pennsylvania. I am very proud to be among you, and I am very grateful to you for letting me address this important group. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Congressman Cartwright.
Good evening, everybody. Respected congressmen, congresswomen, FIIDS colleagues and friends. So thanks for giving your time. The next, I am Ravindra Shukla, the Center Director for Washington, D.C., Foundation for India and Indians Diaspora. And we are fortunate to be in this event and work towards a better US and India relation and many other issues. I would like to call Patrick Cronini. Just a brief introduction about Patrick. So he is one of the think tank expert in the Hudson Institute. And you know what is the most volatile region, geopolitical area in the current world today? It's like Asia Pacific. And he is basically one of the expert think tank in that region. And let's hear from him. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here. And following Congressman Cartwright, I spend half my time in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, at Carnegie Mellon University these days, which is a leading center for technology and science. There are 3,000 Indian students there among the 16,000 of Carnegie Mellon. It's a tremendous, outstanding innovation center. And I want to talk about that, and I'll weave it in. I'm supposed to talk about the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue in 5 minutes. So I will try to be brief, but make a few points here. First, for those who are not familiar with the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, very briefly, it really grew out of the Boxing Day 2004 earthquake and tsunami that devastated so many parts of the Indian Ocean, and the collaboration that grew out of India, Japan, Australia, the United States, 4 countries that the late Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, would call the democratic diamonds. Their cooperation lapsed over time. It was the Trump administration that revived them and reinvigorated as kind of a second phase of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, largely from a U.S. perspective as a counterweight to China's growing assertiveness and power, but also as a way to ensure that these 4 democracies could forge a brighter future for a region that, after all, represented half of the population and GDP of the world. It was President Biden and the Biden administration, though, that elevated this to a leaders' meeting. So it went from foreign ministers meeting on a regular basis to the leaders meeting 4 times since President Biden's been in office, 2 times in person, first at the White House in 2021, and last year in Tokyo. Indeed, Prime Minister Kishida, Prime Minister Albanese, Prime Minister Modi, and President Biden were all there. And those 4 leaders will be in Sydney, Australia next month for the 5th and the 3rd in-person Quadrilateral Security Leaders meeting. It's a critical opportunity for these leaders to shape this vast region and really shape the future of the world. Now, this Quad is, as we heard, is largely economically focused, not just from the Indian perspective, from all 4 countries' perspective, it is focused on economic security. But also each country does have a security and a strategic agenda as well. And for India, if I may be so bold as a non-governmental official, India wants to make sure that China doesn't close out India's future opportunities in the Indian Ocean. It's a broad strategic agenda, but the institutionalization that is building right now in the Quad is coming around 6 working groups. And if you listen to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan's speech, you can go online and listen to his speech today at the Brookings Institution on economic strategy, security, and on China. It's an outstanding moment for America shaping our own vision of what the future international economy might become, working with countries like India. and working with countries like the Quad. So very important. It intersects what the Quad is doing. There's a similar mindset that the world order is in transition. You've got countries like India rising, not just in population, but in stature in all regards. And so these power shifts are going to happen. They happen throughout history. What matters, though, is what's the operating system and the rules that we're working under. And that's where the Quad becomes so important for shaping these rules on economic security. So they're working on 6 working groups. It started with COVID and global health because the leaders' meetings came during the COVID period, and they were trying to respond to real-world challenges. And there was no more real-world challenge in 2020 than the global pandemic and global health. And these 4 countries coming together to create and deliver 800 million doses, including half of those in the Indo-Pacific, of vaccine, billions of dollars pledged to the COVID vaccine advanced market commitment for lower and less developed countries, and developing joint ventures like including support for India's manufacturing capacity. And they're continuing to work now on public health and preparedness. On infrastructure, a second working group, critically important. As Congressman Cartwright said, very important for America to have this infrastructure rebuilt. I know I live in Squirrel Hill and Forbes Avenue where the bridge went down where President Biden came initially to Pittsburgh, and we now have a new bridge, which is very fast for American infrastructure. And we can thank the infrastructure work that's being done here in terms of Congress. I think what we're trying to do as a Quad is to fill the vast gap across the Indo-Pacific. And so these 4 countries are trying to extend $50 billion for regional infrastructure over the next 5 years. That's a drop in the bucket compared to what is needed in the Indo-Pacific, but it's only part of what these countries are working on. And so we'll see at the Group of 7 leaders meeting in Hiroshima next month, we'll see as well what the EU, the European Union, is doing together with the United States and with these countries. It's going to add up to hundreds of billions of dollars of high-quality, climate-resistant, and sustainable infrastructure. This is very important. It was partly seen as a way to be an alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative, not because the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative was bad, but because if there's no alternative to something that is completely lacking in transparency, in which the financing is opaque, in which the standards are unknown, that's not good. And so trying to create transparency and high quality and sustainability and climate resistance, all good, is what the Quad's trying to do. The other quickly on the other working groups on climate, clean energy technology, green shipping, on critical and emerging technologies, a critical issue for me, really driving the future of this century. And India's got such a critical role to play in this. That's why I'm at Carnegie Mellon right now. My wife's setting up a whole institute on strategy and technology, is to try to bring Washington and Delhi and Tokyo and Canberra and other capitals into the technology and science technology so that these 2 groups can understand each other much better and make things happen and improve them. On space, something like the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness is a brilliant initiative that is tying together commercial satellite coverage and bringing this information down to fishers and into fusion centers across the Indian Ocean, the South China Sea, into the Pacific Islands. And it's helping with livelihoods and local issues of illegal fishing, but also providing maritime domain awareness across this vast oceanic space. On cyberspace, there's a new initiative that we'll hear more about in Sydney that's tackling critical infrastructure, because cyber is still a double-edged sword and a tool that can be crippling for critical infrastructure, and trying to develop the standards for software, trying to communicate across governments and the private sector about incidents that are happening on critical infrastructure across these countries is so important, and that's what the Quad is going to be trying to do. Last thing I'd say here is that at the last Quad, they also announced something near and dear to my heart, which was these STEM graduate fellowships. So in science technology, they are working on providing 25 scholarships per year to each of these 4 countries to study at leading American universities like Carnegie Mellon University, and to advance this network of younger researchers and talent in STEM to try to create solutions to tomorrow's problems. I will note that in 2024, this may become a lot harder because, of course, we do have these critical elections both in India and in the United States. And India is supposed to host maybe a leaders' meeting of the Quad in May of 2024, which is exactly when the Indian election would be normally held. So there's some juggling to be done, depending on what happens in India's election. And then there's the American election. But I think there's bipartisan support, as I talked about Trump and Biden, for instance, strong bipartisan support for the quadrilateral security dialogue. And it is only one vehicle, but it's a really important vehicle when you think about what these four countries and their people, governments and non-governmental organizations bring in terms of innovation, in terms of the workforce, in terms of, yes, we have to get the visa problem, fixed here and make this easier, but there's so many opportunities, and I hope we will be able to work even more together, both at the university, but here in Washington when we talk about policy ideas and try to create solutions for today's and tomorrow's problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join your hands to welcome Dr. Rahul Gupta, an Indian-American physician who is Director of Office of National Drug Control Policy. All of us know the overdose phenomena happening, and Dr. Gupta has a wonderful role to save lives in America. I invite him to address the delegations here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to FIIDS, and thank you to the American Jewish Committee for sponsoring this event. I bring you greetings from the White House, from President Biden and Vice President Harris. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about two things. First, the challenge, which is a global threat all over the world, and secondly, the bilateral work that is happening as well as multilateral in U.S.-India relationship and things we're trying to do to move things forward. So first of all, imagine, we have in this country 46 million Americans who are suffering from addiction. Number one cause of dying from 19 to 44 years of age. $1.5 trillion lost economy in each year. That's the equivalent of the GDP of Russia that we're losing. And the lowest birth rate on record in this country right now. It takes 19% lower than what it needs to just to keep the population going. So if you think about this, domestically, you cannot have a greater challenge of national security, economic prosperity, and public health. This is what it brings. But then when you look at globally, we have changed in so many ways for drug supply. Why? Because organic drugs are moving to synthetic drugs. So we're talking about fentanyl, we're talking about methamphetamine, Captagon, ketamine, all those drugs. The way we consume drugs is changing, the way we buy and sell drugs is changing online mostly, dark web. So this has become a global threat. And what we have said to countries all over the world is the world can be divided into three types of countries. Those who have a synthetic drug problem and know about it, like the United States, those who have a synthetic drug problem and yet do not know about it, and those who are going to have synthetic drug problem. That's it. The whole world can be divided like this. So we are working to call on a global coalition for synthetic drugs, and India is a really important player as well as a global leader to come and be a partner on that. So there's a lot of work we're going to be doing on that. It is about saving lives across. We know just in India, you're talking about over 700 million people in working age. So it's the workforce for the world. And it is important at a time when a number of other countries are having an aging population and challenges. So with that, we've begun to work since 2020 on a counter-narcotics working group in a bilateral way. Now, we're working at this point to advance the US-India drug policy framework for the 21st century. And I'll just give you a preview of what we're hoping. We're hoping to have a global leadership in countering in illicit drug production, whether it's law enforcement relationships, whether it's harmonizing the scheduling, or securing both countries' postal systems for cooperation and work. It's really good, important. India Post and USPS, some of the best systems in the world. Second, we are creating a sustainable and holistic public health partnerships. Why is that important? If you know, in healthcare in this country, we expect 30,000 people shortage. 30,000 shortage in the next 5 years. Psychiatrists, counselors, social workers. So it's really important to harmonize our training for the two countries and look at options to bring people here for both workforce as well as other aspects. These are the ways that I think both countries can work together. And the last one is that to secure and grow the 21st century pharmaceutical supply chain. It's really important that India has an important role to play as a model for the world, as a global leader in pharmaceutical supply chain when it looks at preventing the diversion, unlike what we are seeing with China right now. We know a lot of the precursor chemicals that are converted into fentanyl are coming from the PRC predominantly, but they can also come from India if India does not make sure that they're being prevented. And the counterfeit drugs. So there's a tremendous opportunity for US-India partnership in this area. I'll end with this. You know, we have the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy. There are so many opportunities today to work together. We know that there's about 4 million Indian American diaspora people here, but there's really an important size of US citizens living in India right now as well. So this is the scale of the work. Together, I think we can counter threats to our national security, economic prosperity. We can seize opportunity for further growth. We can advance workforce needs of both nations. We can make sure that drug pricing is something we look at, and that's stay in control by making sure that we have a good pharmaceutical supply chain. At the end, these are two democracies that we think, as we work towards developing a global coalition, US-India partnership, G20 work stream for counter-narcotics, as well as at the UNGA later this year, there are going to be so many opportunities for us to further solidify the already growing and strengthening relationship between the two countries. So thank you, and we look forward to having this successful. I know you had a lot of meetings today, and you've had a lot of success, so you know, this is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Naveed Javlit is a career diplomat from Israel and is currently posted as a consular political affairs at the Embassy of Israel in Washington, D.C. Formerly, he was the advisor to the Director General to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel and the Deputy Consular General of Israel in China. Mr. Naveed, please.
Hi. I almost managed not to go up on stage. Thank you, everybody. I think you all know better than I do about the relationship, the trilateral relationship really between Israel, India, and the US, how we really managed to take a win-win cooperation, how the sky is the limit, and all the many, many things I'm sure you heard yesterday in the summit and you've heard during the trips. I think what's most important is to say, being a diplomat here, although an Israeli diplomat, so allow me to be a bit less diplomatic and say that in the end of the day, what we really need is your involvement. And what is important is the involvement of our diasporas. That is the added value, I think, of each and every one of our countries, that despite on the surface looking very different from each other, I think each and every of the three countries, the US, Israel, and India, are countries in which, in the end of the day, when you dig down deep, you see that the most important natural resource that each and every one of them possess is their human capita. And the most important thing that we could do, because in the end of the day, as people articulated before me. We have all the various organizations and meetings and the policy people talking and talking and mostly talking. But it's the diaspora that does. It is you who came many times either on your own or with your family, who built families here, who managed to really overcome incredible, incredible hardships in order to be people who could really contribute not only to their family, but around the globe. So in this special event, I would actually like to talk about my mother-in-law, not that you'll ever know that I talked about her here, and say how I remember when my mother-in-law, who actually made the opposite route, came from the US to Israel, and studied in Harvard, just as her Jewish parents were very, very proud of. And when she came in 1980 to Israel, she went to a startup company at the time. Now, since she studied chemistry, she had no idea in anything to do with computers. But being an immigrant, she came in, showed herself, said, look, I came, I'm hungry, this is what I want to do, built a few companies, built a future for her families, but most importantly, built back to the community. So I think in the end of the day, I will really take this opportunity not to talk too much. I'd be happy to take this opportunity later on to listen to you. Please feel free later on to come and talk, and we'd really, really welcome your ideas. I'll just say this, the ITU2 that we were talking about, the unique thing about the ITU2, and not that we're envious of the Quad or any other multilateral organization. I think the amazing thing about the ITU2 is that it's not even 1 year old. It's not even 1 year old since this idea was thought about and brainstormed, and we already have 2 projects up and running in India. Why? Because it's the business community that came and are the ones who promoted it. Us diplomats, us government officials are very good in talking, but without you, without your commitment, without your ingenuity, without your experience, our relationship and the potential of our relationship would really be nothing. So I really just want to thank you all for coming from all over, for caring, for wanting to do something. And I promise you all that if you have the ideas, Israel will always listen, and we will always be ready, together with the AJC, with our fantastic Jewish diaspora here in the United States, and with the Israeli government. We will be happy, and I'm sure also with our great, great ally and friend, the United States government, and the great, amazing people here on the Hill. We'll be happy to really take your dreams and fulfill them to make the lives of our citizens, and I would say maybe the whole world, a better place. Thank you very, very much for today. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce our next speaker. Please welcome Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney from New York. Carolyn Maloney, everybody knows her for her great work. If the United States Postal Service have a stamp, Diwali stamp, which happened only because of her, and also she has a bill for Mahatma Gandhi, give him the Medal of Honor in the United States Congress. Please welcome Carolyn Maloney. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, and I hope you're having a nice conference. America and India have always been very strong allies, trading partners, and it's very appropriate that the world's largest democracy and one of the world's oldest democracies are such good friends, not only in commerce, but allies, and we've worked together in so many ways. I have the honor of representing a very large and diverse and dynamic Indian American community, and people that are of this community have contributed successfully in so many areas. In fact, our Vice President of the United States, her mother was Indian, and she has just announced that she's running for re-election with President Biden, so we're all very excited about that. I did author and pass a bill that created a stamp for Diwali, And at first I had a hard time passing it because they were afraid people wouldn't buy it. But it was one of the biggest selling stamps of all times. In fact, the day that it came out, it sold out. And I had to do legislation. I even had to get President Obama to help me get it, make it become a law that we would have it. But to this day, it has raised over $8 million for the country, for America, because so many people want to buy it. It's a symbol of light, the symbol of good over evil, of goodness over evil. And it's one of the most popular stamps now in America. It was so popular, I put in a bill to make it a holiday. So many people had recognized it. And in America, in my district that I represent, there is a statue of Gandhi. Gandhi is in one of our parks, and he has been credited by two of our great human rights, civil rights leaders. Both Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King credited Gandhi and his teachings for their philosophy and their political strength and their contributions. So both of them have gotten recognized and received the highest honor that our country has to give, the Freedom Award from the President of the United States. And I did put in a bill that Gandhi should have the same award recognition. Since two of his disciples had won it, certainly he's entitled to it too. So anyway, that's a work in progress, like many things, and I hope you have a wonderful conference, and I'm glad to bring you greetings from the great city of New York. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. It's a delight and honor to have you address us today. Thank you so much. Yes. And it gives me great delight, great honor to welcome Dr. Rich McCormick, an emergency room doctor. That's, I'm a doctor, I have to first say that, but also a Marine and a decorated veteran, proudly serving the 6th District of Georgia. Please put your hands together. He's got, please, and he's the one I want to say. He said, about the Indian Americans, he's such a, whole of Georgia just adores him. And he said 1% Indian Americans paying 6% of the taxes, and he just gave us more glowing tributes than we would give ourselves. So thank you so much for making it today.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be with you here tonight. This is one of my favorite venues, and I mean this sincerely. We have almost 100,000 people of Indian descent in my district. That's a significant portion of our population. 1 out of every 5 doctors in my community is from India. It's an incredible imprint that we have in our district, but I'll tell you, I spent a tour over in India. Remember when Bill Clinton came and visited in India? I was part of the presidential helicopter sport as a Marine Corps pilot at the time. We spent a good time talking about Kashmir, talked with some pilots that had an incredible 10,000 hours of helicopter time up in the Kashmir region, which is high altitude. Those are some incredible pilots. The experiences I had over there during Holi, I might add, were unique. And to get to know such a loving people was just a really heartwarming experience. I will say there's a lot of things to fight for. First of all, I will tell anybody this. I don't care who they are. India is absolutely one of our most, maybe the most strategically important ally we have. If you look at, absolutely. If you look at the region of the Eastern Pacific Rim and who our enemies are, who's being egregiously acting in the World Trade Organization, there's one country that stands out above all. You know it, China. You know the border disputes you have right now. You know, you can already see the problems with Bangladesh. You can see it with Pakistan. You can see it with China. You can see we have some common problems with common countries. And no one's more important in this fight than you and India in fighting this expansion of Chinese cheating, basically. I spent my time, I just came back from Ukraine, and when I was over there, I spent my entire time reading a book about that thick. And by the way, I'm a Marine, so I don't like pictures. I want pictures in this. They had no pictures. And I had to read this thing about how basically China in the last 20 years, since they joined the WTO, has cheated their way to the top. They used to have a GDP very similar to Japan only 10 years ago. Since their Made in China initiative in 2015, they've used fiat currency, basically printing currency, up to the tune of $52 trillion of debt, which is $20 trillion more than the United States has, in order to become the second largest economy. Now, the good news is India can do it the right way. The constitution that they designed is very similar to the United States. You can see that they're thriving during this time of economic downturn because they have a capitalistic society which provides opportunities for all people, much like the United States does. I am doing everything I can to tie us to them both economically and also militarily. We need to have strong allies and partners in that region, and I cannot see anybody more important than the world's largest population, which is soon to be India, at 1.4 billion people. If you look at the future of economic growth, I think India pretty soon will overtake Japan and Germany and will become one of the largest economies and one of the quickest growing economies in the world. That is an important ally to have. We need to make sure that we tie each other to each other in militarily, in exercises, in armament, in the ability to buy important weapon systems into the future so that India can protect itself, so it continue to link itself to us rather than foreign countries that are not favorable to us. If you look at discrimination right now, everybody talks about discrimination. They talk about equity. Nobody suffers more than the Indian community when we talk about this. You've seen it because of the color of your skin, not the content of your character. You're not allowed into certain schools because too many people of your ilk do too well in school. So they limit school slots into the top universities in America. That's discrimination. The fact that you've done it right, that you follow laws, and you've waited your turn, and you've put in the right paperwork, you've paid your dues, you've paid your taxes, and you have to wait for 20 years to become a citizen because of the country you came from is not right. We need to fight against that. We need to make this fair. I can't think of anybody who makes a better citizen. Somebody who does it the right way. Somebody who's not burdening society with people who want to stay at home, but people who want to invest, who want to create, who want to produce jobs, produce income, produce tax, produce the best of us when you talk about family units. People who literally pay so much attention to their children and have such high expectations. And by the way, as a medical doctor, I'll tell you the best, I don't know how to tell you, your community, because you understand better than anybody what makes children successful. By expectation and by responsibility. Nobody has better expectations and responsibility in their children, and that's why your children are outperforming everybody else in the school systems by dramatic measures. But we have a fight to fight right now. Some people say it shouldn't matter because we should all end up at the same place. That's not good policy. We should never punish anybody for hard work, never punish anybody for success, never punish anybody for becoming the next billionaire or millionaire. We need to reward that so other people aspire to the same thing. You are setting the bar for that. Thank God, because that is the ultimate American dream, that you can come here from another country. No matter what you look like, no matter what you bring here, no matter how you sound, you can be wildly successful beyond anybody else that you left behind in a foreign country, no matter what country you come from, and be the next millionaire. And have your children be a lawyer, a doctor, or whatever you want it to be, and be highly influential. And as a matter of fact, I'll stand by this to my dying day. The Indian community right now is in a similar position to what the Jewish community was not so long ago, making up about 1% of the population. If you go to the RJC in Vegas, you'll see every presidential candidate for the Republicans go through there and parade in front of this population. 30% of the Indian population votes Republican. And yet they have that kind of power. Think about your power. Get ready and buckle up, because I can't see a more important demographic in the future of American politics than the people who are the most successful, growing faster, and have the investment in a future of America. You could literally choose the next president of the United States. That's your investment. So I encourage you to be involved. I encourage you to invest. I encourage you to run for office. I encourage you to figure out who you are and what you stand for. Don't punish yourself with your politics. Invest in success. Allow yourself to be free from regulation, free from overtaxation, free from regulation, free from equity when you outwork the rest of us. Unleash your potential. That's what you do. That's what you're best at. And thank you for being great Americans. God bless you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amrita Haude. I am from Georgia, a FIIDS delegate from Georgia, but living here in the district. I am very glad to be thanking Dr. McCormick, who is my representative from Georgia's 6th District, and also introducing Representative Mike Collins. As the representative for Georgia's 10th Congressional District, Mike Collins brings decades of experience as an entrepreneur, businessman, and employer to Congress. Mike has also served on the board and as chairman of one of Georgia's largest credit unions and president of his local Chamber of Commerce. Please join me in welcoming Representative Mike Collins.
Thank you. You know, I've been up here approximately 110 days, not that I've counted, but I am a freshman here. First time I've ever been elected to anything, actually, y'all. And I want to take mine in a little bit of a different direction from Rich. I just want to tell you a little bit about who I am, what I believe, and what I think is going on, because I think you need to hear that too. First of all, I am a small businessman, second generation in the trucking industry. My wife and I, we started our own trucking company a little over 30 years ago. Built it up. We run just north of 100 trucks, around 115 pieces of equipment across the country every day. And my wife was fortunate enough to give birth to twin sons, and they're 30 now, and they've actually been running our day-to-day operation for a little over 4 years. So it's given me an opportunity to step out, run for this position, and serve not only the 10th District of Georgia, but Georgia and this country with my values. Our district is actually a good blue-collar district. We actually, I guess most people would know us by Athens, Georgia, with the University of Georgia Bulldogs there. But for the most part, it's just good old hard-working, regular blue-collar folks that get up every day, go to work, want to provide for their families, and be left alone. So we've been up here. I sit on 3 good committees, Transportation, Infrastructure, Natural Resources, and Space Science and Technology. And then they put me on 7 subcommittees. The reason I tell you that is because, y'all, we've been holding hearings. I think there were 2 days in which we held over 42 hearings on each day. So we have been holding oversight in every committee that we've got. And I'll tell you what I've been seeing. It's the same thing over and over again of one of the main reasons that I ran, and that is government overreach. And the fact that you have seen jobs, you've seen businesses close, you've seen financial institutions go down because either the government was overreaching from up here in Washington, D.C. to the point where these people were going out of business, or they were having to sell out. Or either they were moving their business overseas to China. And y'all, if we don't get that under control, I'm afraid we're going to be over here eating with chopsticks and speaking Chinese. And it's time to work on that. And that's one of the main themes that I've been seeing up here. I'll give you for a good example. We're looking to go electric vehicles. And in order to do that, you've got to have mining done here in this country. Y'all realize we only have 3 smelters left that are operating in this country? The rest of them have closed down. Y'all realize that the ones that are mining the critical mines in this country, they're sending that product to China. China's processing it and send it back to the United States. Now that doesn't even make common sense. But yet, due to government overreach and the fact that you couldn't get a permit for 10 years, it's kept people out of the mining business from producing that right here. And of course, our smelters are just getting older and they're going out of business. We've got a lot of things that we can work on up here in D.C. And as a small businessman, I'm going to take those principles. When I walk in to sit down at a hearing, I focus on several different things. First of all, what's the problem? What's the solution? And how do we keep that from happening again? Because, folks, my job is to make sure that you are able to do what you want to do in your life, be it business or be it in your family life. And so I can take the 30 years of experience of being in the most regulated and taxed industry out there, the trucking industry, and I can come up here and I can be effective. I'll tell you a story. We were sitting in a hearing, and It was a farmer. Now, I'm not in the farming business. He was sitting out there, and we were talking about waters of the U.S. And I could tell the guy was upset. He was emotional. And so when he got around to me, I said, you know, I can tell you're upset. You've got small kids, right? And he said, yes. And I said, what are you worried about? The fact that they won't be able to farm when it gets their turn, and you won't be able to turn the farm over to them? He said, you're exactly right. I'm worried about the next generation and whether or not they'll be able to have this farm. And I said, sir, let me tell you something. I had the exact same story when I ran. That's what I ran on. Because I don't believe today that if my kids, who they're not kids anymore, would have the same opportunity that I had to open that trucking company due to the regulations and the overreach of this federal government. So that's what I'm up here to do. Listen, if we can ever help you, we can ever look at anything, please look us up. We're easy to find. They packed all us freshmen over in the Longworth, and we'll be glad to take a look at whatever you got going on. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you. Thank you.
We have a full calendar, and we're going to bring the next Congress member before you, certainly from the state of California, Silicon Valley, what I call one of the most consequential districts of the United States of America. Represents Congressional District 17, serves on the Armed Services Committee, currently serves on the Select Committee for China, and certainly in the Oversight Committee as well. But in his 3 terms in office, he's continued to raise the bar on what is expected from public servants. He cares deeply about public service, and it comes deep from his heart. He understands the nuanced nature of American politics, has served on campaign chairman roles for not only Bernie, but now Barbara Lee, and will certainly serve the president's re-election as well. It is my pleasure to introduce before you our congressman from Silicon Valley, Ro Khanna.
Thank you, Yogi, for that kind introduction, for your leadership for many, many years, and your leadership with FIIDS and everything you've done. And Kande Rao, I don't know if I see Kande Rao here. Thank you for what you've done. It's terrific. You know, Raja and I, very good friends. Raja's done extraordinarily chairing, or the ranking member right now in the China Committee, and we're both on it. But, you know, when we started in politics, there were hardly anyone in the Indian American community involved. It used to be Ramesh Kapoor and begging everyone else to get engaged. And you know, we didn't have Mukesh Aghi in leadership. We didn't have 5 members of Congress. And so I am so heartened today, and I'm sure Raja could say the same thing. We had all of you going to 70 members of Congress's offices and talking about why the U.S.-India relationship matters to the United States strategic interests, why the immigration issues matter to the United States strategic interests, helping us, because we talk on the floor, Raja and I, we got to get this country cap removed, but we can't do it without a lot of other members of Congress. And you're out there making the case, and the feedback I've gotten is that you did it very respectfully, eloquently, and did it very effectively. And that, you should be really proud of that. I'm really proud to see, let's give yourselves a round of applause. I'm really proud to see how far this community has come. And I have no doubt that we're going to continue to grow, continue to have this impact, continue to be bigger and bigger presence, because our involvement, and I'll end with this point, our involvement is not just good for the Indian American community. Our involvement is good for the United States of America. It's good to make our country more prosperous, to make our country more secure, to make our country a stronger democracy. So we are really appreciative of you being here. And you see members of Congress, they don't just come from the Asian American areas. I mean, they're from all over, and that's a testament to the respect that we now have as a community. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rokhanna. My name is Ashwin Admala. I am one of the chapter coordinators for FIIDS here in the DC area. I would like to now introduce Dr. Mukesh Aghi. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Please welcome Dr. Mukesh Aghi.
Well, good evening. My name is Mukesh Aghi, and I represent US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. We operate on two principles. Number one, economic prosperity of India is good for America and American companies. And the second principle we operate is a military strong India is good for regional stability. What does that mean? On first principle, we are focused on trying to drive trade between the two countries to $500 billion, which is around now almost $200 billion. The second, on the first principle also, our focus is to bring in roughly 500,000 students to study in America. And more important is, 70% end up being in the STEM program, and see how many can fill the skill gap which we are seeing as we move forward itself. So that's the first principle. The second principle on military strong India. Today, India, 52% of the platform is Russian. Our objective is how do we basically make that into more self-sufficient, more manufactured in India. And we recently had the ISET dialogue where we talked about critical technology transfer. And one of the objectives we have is when the Prime Minister of India comes in June, that we are able to move at least the GE engine project into India itself. So we are focused on trying to drive, and it's a win-win value proposition between the two countries. We had roughly over $35 billion investment from US companies into India. We had almost $12 billion from India into the US. So it's a reciprocal investment which we're working on between the two countries. We're focused a lot on trying to have China plus one strategy for US companies. For example, we're working with almost over 200 companies from US companies which are trying to have China plus one strategy. One of the first companies which we worked on was Apple. Apple by next year will be producing roughly around 20 million iPhone 14s in India to be exported to the rest of the world, which is around 7% of its manufacturing. So I think it's a win-win value proposition we're working on, and I just want to say congratulations to the organizers for organizing the session. Thank you for having me, and have a pleasant evening.
Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy. He was elected in Congress in 2016 and is now in his fourth term, representing Illinois 8th District, which includes Chicago's west and northwest suburbs. He serves as ranking member of the Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. So give a big round of applause and please welcome Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy.
Good afternoon. I want to observe those 3 rules of public speaking. Be short, be sweet, and be gone. 3 points I want to make. First of all, can you give a big round of applause to the organizers of today's FIIDS event? Obviously, we see that FIIDS is extremely important for the study of Indian diaspora, of course, about India as well. But I also think that FIIDS is good for our kids, right? Our children need to learn about our culture, our heritage, and where we're going as a community. So thank you to FIIDS for doing this, not only for us, but for our children as well and future generations. Secondly, can you give a big round of applause for our dignitaries here, including the ambassador from India who just arrived? Please be recognized. I, of course, see my fellow Congressman Grothman and others who've arrived and departed, including Ro, who always is rowing in the right direction for our caucus right now, the India caucus. And I'm so glad to row with him. And of course, I see Ms. Jackson from the State Department. Please be recognized as well. I think it's a real testament to your strength that all these dignitaries are appearing here out of respect for you. And that means that you have arrived. The third and final point is this. You know, we often talk about 4G, 3G, 5G, but at the end of the day, we should be talking about Mataji. And for many of us, Mataji is the motherland, which is India, right? Am I right about that? Now, I don't need to go through the statistics. I'm sure the ambassador will do a fine job of that, but India, of course, is the fastest growing economy in the world, the largest country in the world as of last weekend. Of course, we know that India's trajectory has no limits. And so that is why it makes all the sense in the world for our partnership with India to strengthen, to deepen, to widen, to span as many sectors as we could possibly have them. And of course, the reason why that partnership is so strong is because of you, Indian Americans. Indian Americans are that bridge, that glue that brings India and the United States together. And of course, you are achieving incredible milestones in your own right. I am one of 5 Indian Americans in Congress now. I affectionately call us the Samosa Caucus. But as I like to say, we need more samosas, but we need more pakoras, idlis, vades, and whatever your favorite spicy snack is in Congress, because the more that Congress looks like America, the better it functions. Am I right about that? And so I just want to close by saying thank you to all of you. You support FIIDS. Many of you donate to FIIDS and make sure that the foundation is strong. And I'm always reminded of that saying, you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. And by giving to FIIDS, by giving to the community, by giving to our diaspora, you are strengthening the diaspora. So thank you. And God bless all of you. And God bless America. And of course, Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy. Now it is my pleasure and fortune to introduce Deputy Assistant Secretary, Nancy Jackson. She is in charge of Bureau of South and Central Asia. So not only India, but entire all the South Asia and Central Asia, all the policies, initiatives that is under her leadership. And you have seen that last couple of years, so many dimensions and so many initiatives has been taken under her leadership. And she is very accessible, guiding, and we are very proud of her contributions. So she has been a very distinguished, senior, tenured foreign official in State Department. So thank you.
Wow, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't know that I deserve it, but I will very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. So distinguished guests, it is such a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Really a pleasure for me. I am so thrilled to be able to work together with you on the U.S.-India relationship, which continues to astound me by its breadth and depth and deep, deep connections that we have between our two countries. I want to give a special thanks as well to FIIDS and to the American Jewish Committee for hosting the event today. It's a great opportunity to talk. We've talked a lot about the U.S.-India relationship. I want to talk a little bit about the U.S.-India relationship bilaterally, but also a little bit more about multilateral and what we're doing together in the globe. So as Deputy Assistant Secretary for India, I've been really able to see firsthand the growth of this relationship. and how it has expanded, as I said, not only in the bilateral realm, but also within the multilateral setting. And that includes the Indo-Pacific Quad that you heard about earlier, and also the Israel, India, UAE, and US grouping, fondly known as I2U2. And so I know my Israeli diplomatic friend mentioned it earlier and said he had some envy about Quad. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about I2U2 as well, so he doesn't need to feel envious. As both President Biden and Secretary Blinken have stated, our partnership with India is one of our most consequential global relationships. We work closely with India on our most vital priorities: increasing mutual prosperity, advancing democracy, addressing the climate crisis, and upholding a rules-based order that is grounded in international law. The breadth of our relationship truly covers the entire spectrum of our foreign policy priorities, from defense ties, economic and trade relations, security cooperation, the Indo-Pacific Quad partnership, from health to space to technology, and upholding democratic norms and principles. This is all underscored by our deep people-to-people ties, including a record number of Indian students who are currently pursuing higher education in the United States. During this year, we have seen continued engagement at the highest levels of our government, with Secretaries Blinken, Raimondo, Yellen, all traveling to India within the last few months alone. This demonstrates our shared commitment to expanding and deepening this partnership. As I noted, one of the growing areas of cooperation that I have had the privilege of seeing firsthand is really our cooperation with Japan and Australia in the Quad. We have seen great advancements in the Quad and its cooperation, as reflected in the 2022 Quad Leaders Summit in Tokyo last May, and most recently the Quad Foreign Ministerial meeting that we held in New Delhi just last month. And we expect to see great things and continued progress out of the Quad Leaders Summit that will happen in Australia next month. The Quad is tackling some of the region's most pressing issues, including responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, addressing climate change, providing humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and working together to address the need for quality infrastructure financing and investment. Through the Quad, we together are demonstrating what democracies can deliver for their people, for the region, and the world when we work together. For example, the Quad Partnership on Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief is improving our ability to jointly respond to humanitarian disasters. The Quad also recently announced the creation of the Indo-Pacific Partnership on Maritime Domain Awareness. This will help countries in the region increase their ability to address illicit maritime activities. That's to the benefit of all of our economies. Then there is our work with I2U2. I2U2 aims to harness the vibrancy and entrepreneurial spirit of our societies to tackle some of our greatest challenges, with a particular focus on investments and new initiatives in water, energy, transportation, space, health, and food security. These investments are seeking to modernize our infrastructure, help advance the decarbonization of our industries, and promote the development and deployment of emerging and green technologies. In so doing, we will expand our shared prosperity, improve the health of our citizens, and serve as a model for promoting regional partnerships that create employment opportunities for our workers. I'd like to take a moment to just highlight 3 projects that are now ongoing under the I2U2 umbrella. First, our 4 countries are working to improve food security. To that end, India will provide land and facilitate farmers' integration into a project that aims to develop a series of integrated food parks around India. These food parks will incorporate state-of-the-art, climate-smart technologies to reduce food waste and spoilage, conserve fresh water, and employ renewable energy sources. The UAE is looking to invest $2 billion to support these efforts, and US and Israeli private sectors are being invited to lend their expertise to the project. These investments will maximize crop yields and in turn help tackle food security in South Asia and the Middle East, and we're doing that together. We are also working together on clean energy. In furtherance of India's goal of achieving 500 gigawatts of installed non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030, the I2U2 group is working to advance a hybrid renewable energy project in India's Gujarat state, consisting of 300 megawatts of wind and solar capacity, complemented by a battery energy storage system. Third, in February, India became a partner in the Agriculture Innovation Mission for Climate, or as we like to call it, AIM for Climate. This joint initiative was launched by the US and the UAE to address climate change and global hunger by uniting participants to increase significantly their investments in and support for climate-smart agriculture and food systems and innovations. Now, as many of you know, I cannot talk about the US-India relationship without talking about the strong people-to-people ties between the US and India. It is one of my favorite topics. These ties, I believe, remain the bedrock of our bilateral relationship, and we are working further to strengthen those ties. We are so proud that there are over 400 million Indian Americans in the United States of America. We are so proud that there are over 200,000 Indian students that have decided to come to the United States to pursue a college degree. As Secretary Blinken has said, international education is a foreign policy imperative. As many of you know, we have faced a huge backlog of visa demand as we reopened our embassies and consulates around the world following the peak of the pandemic. Last year, our embassy and consulates in India broke all-time records for the most student and exchange visitor visas issued in a year. We issued more than 125,000 student visas last year, and this year we are prepared to issue even more. We have dedicated significant resources to lowering appointment wait times in India, and we are seeing progress. All visa categories except first-time visitor visa applicants have interview wait times that are close to pre-pandemic levels or even lower in some cases. We're not resting on our laurels. We are actively working to keep bringing down those wait times. So in closing, I would just like to say, as you can see, our partnership with India is a strong and growing one. I really want to thank all of you for all the work that you do to advance and support this important global relationship. This friendship between our two democracies is a global force for good in the world, as is our partnerships in the Quad and I2U2. Thank you so much for letting me talk with you tonight.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson. See, you are very responsive. A few months ago, when FIIDS reached out regarding the visa issues, she prepared a special meeting with press, explained in detail what's the actions being taken across the country, different embassies, and thank you so much for that. My privilege now to introduce Ambassador Taranjit Singh Sandhuji. Everybody here probably knows him. He doesn't need any introduction, but we are privileged for him to speak here today. He's a consummate diplomat, knows Washington well, and has been, engaging the community, not only community very actively. Last few years, you might have seen so much activity with even youth. Innovatively, he even wants to engage second generation Indians. So many innovative activities is doing to, and the most consequential and important time between US-India relations. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much for your Nice warm comments. It's interesting to see how the Indian American community, the diaspora, is so active on the Hill. It's a second continuous day I'm here in the evening. So full compliments to all of you celebrating the Diaspora, Congress, and India-US bilateral partnership, as Nancy just mentioned. And you very rightly pointed out one of the most friendly persons we have in the State Department. Congressman, what a pleasure to have you here. FIIDS and my good friend Khande Rao, who I remember from 2014, and particularly in 2015, when we organized the program in California for Prime Minister. I know that everybody was trying to find you just before the program started. I think it's very appropriate that we are in Capitol today because US Congress has played a special and a pioneering role in getting this partnership going, this cooperation. And I don't mean it with any negativity at all, but they were a step ahead of the administration years back. So that's why I would love to recognize the role which the Congress has played in the past and continues to play. Similarly, the diaspora. The diaspora is largely responsible for ensuring the active role which the Congress has played. And so regularly, continuously, even during a very difficult time. And today, of course, we are sitting here when things are certainly looking up. And as I have often mentioned, given the privilege I have had of serving here a number of times, that it's always been up and down. The challenges never cease, and I'm sure Nancy will bear me out. But what's important is that there is a very strong connect today between the two countries. And it starts with what I often mention about democratic values, of both the democratic polity and the society both of our countries have. And I also mention in that we, like the American society, get to experience democracy right from the start in our family. Every day in the evening, if we ever sit as a family, we get to see the independence of views and the democratic spirit. And that actually has played a very significant role that often the hardest of issues we can sit across with our friends, whether from the administration or with the US Congress, to actually discuss. Like in a family, all views will not be same. That is the normal human tendency. And similarly, our friendship doesn't have to be identical. But we have the strength of being able to sit across each other and discuss. And that continues. If we come to the present situation and we look at the global order all around, you will see that increasingly there is a requirement, there is a need for multi-country partnerships to come together. And COVID was something which so clearly showed us And here I quote President Biden, who said, "No one is safe till everyone is safe." And all of you have seen many countries who tried to close down, close themselves up, still saw that the COVID could sneak in. So that's why plurilateral understandings, groupings, partnerships are very critical. And my friend mentioned about the Indo-Pacific, about the Quad, about I2U2, about Indo-Pacific cooperation. All these are gaining more and more importance and significance. And to that, if we add the kind of transformative changes that are happening in India, and I'll just mention a few, and you will see the depth of that changes. Of course, we all know that India, despite being an ancient civilization, is a very, very young country. And I have been going around and mentioning this for the past many years. Whenever any ambassador from here goes to India, I always say that do reach out to the young in India. And we have to be mindful that India is 50% of 1.4 billion people, 26 years and below. So energy, innovation, startups, that is the rule of the day. They come very, very naturally. In fact, added to that is the technology revolution which is happening in India. Now, if I mention to you that there are 1.2 billion subscribers for mobiles, 1.2 billion. That means one mobile subscriber is added every second in India. Similarly, 3 internet subscribers are added every second for the last 5 to 7 years. So there are a total of 825 million internet subscribers in India. Look at the extent of the spread that is here. And mind you, the cost of data has come down by 98%. 98% in the last 4 years. That is revolutionary. And we are all aware that we have created a digital identity for almost 1.3 billion people. And this digital identity is available to everyone, including all commercial firms, completely free. What impact has that had? Whether Aadhaar card or digital payments like UPI, or even confirming anybody's identity can be done through public space. That is, digital credentials of everyone can be verified. That's the kind of utility which many of the private companies have used in India. So it should not surprise us if today I say that the largest world's digital transactions take place in India. 48 billion transactions. And that has all happened in the post-COVID world. That's the kind of revolutionary changes those are happening. And it's also getting reflected in our relationship. Look at the ISET. Just a few months back, both the NSAs have brought together. And ISET includes semiconductors, quantum, defense, space, telecom. And technology is also visible across many other important sectors which are also important for United States, like healthcare, vaccines, energy, battery technology, education, through which many of you came here. But today, there's a scope to widen it. I often mention that we have 200,000 Indian students here, 2/3 of them in the STEM areas. Like most of the Indian Americans here, these kids bring value and competitive edge to United States economy. That's the kind of partnership which is emerging. But we are a big market, no doubt. Lots of countries recognize that, including some who may be our detractors. The market they certainly want to enter. But if we just look at the Air India-Boeing deal, it will point out to the strength of the Indian market. And if I add there that we are looking to add almost 125 airports in India, you can imagine the kind of extent it has on tourism. I met one of the top CEOs of one of US hotel chains, and they are planning to expand big time in India, anticipating the kind of expansion that is going to take place. But I also want to mention that this is also going into co-production, co-development, and which is very visible if I give you examples of Apple, First Solar, Google, etc. I don't want to take too much time, but my main effort here was to tell you that this is a relationship, a partnership for the future. We all can talk of ours about what has happened in the past. But with a young India, we need to be looking in the future. And that's what exactly is happening. India is bringing scale, affordability, innovation, startup energy to the technology strength of United States. That's the kind of future in which both the countries will be working together. They are already working together. And here, the Diaspora and the US Congress, which has played a pioneering role in the past, has another important role to play to ensure that we continue in the right and the positive direction. As Nancy mentioned, that in the last 4 weeks, 3 top cabinet members of United States, the Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, and Secretary of State were in India. In the last 3 months, top 15 cabinet members from each side have been touching base with each other. And if I tell you, in the last 2 years, President Biden and Prime Minister Modi have interacted in person, virtually, at least 30 times. This is only a reflection of the way this relationship is going. And in the coming month, they are again going to meet twice, and perhaps later again. So, once again, my heartiest congratulations to FIIDS, my compliments to all the congressmen I see here, and I see the latest member of what Raja mentioned here of the Samosa Club. Great to see you here. Once again, wish you all the very best. Stay well and do well. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking time today. And we would like to thank Honorable Taranjit Singh Sindhu, India Ambassador to the United States, for taking time today and leading the India mission. So, I would like to invite the Glenn Grothman, Congressman, but before that I would like to introduce him and want to brief you about him that Congressman Glenn Grothman represents the Wisconsin 6th Congressional District, and he is the fifth term in the Congress. In the House of Representatives, Grothman serves on 3 committees: the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, where he serves as chairman of the Subcommittee of National Security, the Border and Foreign Affairs, and the House Committee on the Budget. Grothman's time in office has also been marked by his passionate advocacy on manufacturing, workforce training, welfare reform, higher education reform, immigration reform, and pro-life caucus. Grothman has also been recognized for his work to protect Medicare and Social Security by receiving the Guardian of Seniors' Right Award. So please welcome Congressman Glenn Grothman.
I'm honored to be here. As so many Americans, in the last 10 or 12 years, I have gotten to know some Indian immigrants who have become good friends of mine, and they have added so much to America. Both of our countries, of course, have similar backgrounds, both formed out of English law, and I think that is one of the things that makes both of our economies so strong. One of my friends had an interesting story when he got here, and like so many Indian immigrants, he came here with nothing. He wound up spending, I believe, he told me 3 months living out of his cab, and now, of course, today is wildly successful. But he said when he got here, he looked at immigrants from all around the world, and I believe he said India was 5th of all the nations in income. And he wanted, as long as he wanted while he was here, to see India advance from number 5 to number 4. As been mentioned previously, Indian immigrants now have higher per capita income than any other immigrant group in the United States, including the people who came here many, many years ago, which is a tremendous sign of what you have given this country. However, I'm going to ask for your help. Okay, I know we had some people meet with me earlier today and they ask for my help, but I'll ask for your help, because immigrants have always been an important thing in America that keeps it vibrant, that keeps it young, and keeps it growing. All of my best Indian friends have been here from 30 to 50 years, and they all make kind of they have the same concerns about the United States, and I'm going to ask you to help us deal with those concerns. John Adams, one of our founders, said that America must be a moral and religious country, and that our Constitution is fit only for a moral and religious country. However, in the last few years, we have seen problems in America, problems that Indians don't have, but too many native-born Americans do have. We have a breakdown in the family, which is encouraged by some people, encouraged by Marxists around the world, of course, and that is a horrible thing that is happening in America as we have more and more people born without a father at home, and it is causing problems that we see everywhere in America, right? Those of you who have been here 30, 40 years ago, you did not see this homelessness. You saw crime was a fraction of what it is today. Drug abuse was a fraction of what it is today. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to governmental policies, which do not focus on a moral and religious people, but which focus on trying to encourage people to live off the government, and this is a huge problem. The drug abuse is mentioned, a huge problem, and we have politicians who, don't want to put anybody in prison, don't really seem to have, as a matter of fact, in some cases, want to legalize drugs. And we ask you for help in restoring that moral base that made America great at one time. We encourage you to help us. Another thing with regard to our education system, and that's been brought up, our great universities who should be training the best people, who do the best on the test scores, to be our doctors, to be our engineers, are getting rid of those test scores or going towards affirmative action in which they are no longer promoting the best. And we want to make America one more time be a country in which we promote the best. So we do have the best medical care. So we do have the best engineers. We are shifting to a country which is discouraging thrift. As you have heard in the last couple of weeks, we are trying to have those people who have saved money pay higher interest rates than those who haven't saved money. And again, this is a problem. So I ask for my Indian friends, and I love to talk about my Indian friends when people try to run down America. I talk about my Indian friends because I say, look at, these people come here. Many of my Indian friends did not know English even when they came here. They are wildly successful and show what a wonderful, great country America is. But there are too many Americans who don't appreciate it, and I hope as the Indian immigration population grows in America, as hopefully it will, we all can get together and revitalize America and make it the moral nation that our forefathers intended. So I'm honored to be here with you. I know you have, as my friends, all of you, already added so much to America, both by example and by making America a materially greater country. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to getting to know you all better in the near future.
Thank you, Congressman Glenn Grothman. Now, I'm Prasad Korani, one of the program director from Arizona. Now I have privilege to invite Congressman Dan Mauser. He's a congressional representative from Pennsylvania and very good friend of India and Indian diaspora. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Real pleasure to be here with some great Americans, Indian Americans, or if you're not currently an American citizen, great to be with you from the great country of India. You know, like my friend Glenn Grothman, it's really an honor to be here with you this evening. I really appreciated the invitation from my very good friend Alpesh Patel. I understand he left a little early. He expected me, I think, a little early. We get a little busy around here after 5 o'clock. I tend to call 5 o'clock halftime in a football game, because then the second half of the game begins. You know, I look at the strategy and advocacy that FIIDS. Is that the right way of pronouncing it, by the way? I'll be correct. The FIIDS. Just fantastic. You're covering so much. It's so important from high school to building community bridges to U.S.-India policy engagement. Just a great plan for bringing us all together. And really, that's what it's about. As my friend Congressman Grothman brought up, India is the 5th largest economy in the world. The U.S. has been #1 for a long time. We want to keep it that way. I think it's beneficial certainly for our country, but I also believe it's beneficial for the world, and is perhaps nothing more important than an alliance, a great alliance, with the great nation of India for the United States. You know, I was in business for a good 25 years. I served as Revenue Secretary for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now I've been in Congress, entering my 3rd term. It's truly an honor to serve, to work for your country, to work for the people who rely upon you, to do your very best for the policy initiatives, and really work for a stronger America from a national security standpoint and an economic standpoint, and ultimately about quality of life, and ultimately about delivering the so-called American dream that frankly, I had the opportunity to live. You know, my father was a New York City police officer. Didn't make a lot of money. You know, he and my mom did our best, gave us everything they possibly could. Was able to help put together a business years back, and all the while, it's about giving back as well, right? I mean, because truly, what success is that you're doing as much for your fellow man and women and countrymen and for the world as you can. And my friends, Alpesh Patel and his family from Northeast Pennsylvania, that's what they do. That's what they do. Sonny, a very good friend of his, a relation, my very good friend Anup, that my wife Shelley is here with me, knows very well, has been to our house many times. I go to his house, go to his place of business. Just good people. I think he's actually a registered Democrat. I don't know how that happened, but no. But that's not even important. What's important is that we're friends, that we talk, that we support each other, that he's building businesses, he's making our community better, making Pennsylvania better, making our country better. And you know, folks, we got a lot of serious issues in this world. I don't think I have to tell you. India's right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of it. We've got some aggressions taking place. I mean, obviously, Vladimir Putin and the invasion of the Ukraine, unprovoked, horrible, really bad things taking place. I get the classified and the declassified. It's just, he's an absolute war criminal. And I have to applaud your president when she came out and made the statements that she made about how unacceptable the actions of Russia under Putin have been. That was a very bold statement to make in light of all of the other potential consequences. And I really just applaud India for taking that strong, clear, logical, but courageous position, really on behalf of so many others in the world. So, look, I'm all about in Congress doing everything I possibly can to help strengthen our national security, help strengthen our economy, but it's really mitigated without great allies. And what we will, I can assure you, and I think it's quite bipartisan, that the alliance with India, the appreciation for American Indians, or let's reverse it, Indian Americans, is well known and well renowned. And that is very much why I'm honored to be here this evening. I really appreciate the invitation. And I hope this is, for many of us, just the beginning of a conversation on what more we can do together. And you know what? If I made one suggestion, my friend, again, Glenn came up and he asked for something. Invite us over to India, right? Let's get a congressional delegation going. Let's get a CODEL going over to India. And I'll be on it. I'll help organize it. And that really helps. That really helps a better understanding and to assure that not just our policies, but our relationship and our alliance and our working together and living together continues for many, many years to come. You know, we like to think in America that this century should be a new, renewed American century. I think it's also going to be a century for India, and I think you'd agree with me on that. So together, we will fulfill our dreams and assure that we provide opportunity for our children that, yes, we had, but if we didn't, let's create it for them. So God bless you. Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for being here.
This is Saili Nathan from Michigan, and I am honored and I have privilege to introduce the Congressman from Michigan, Shri Thanedar. Please welcome Shri Thanedar. Congressman Shri Thanedar proudly represents the people of Michigan's 13th Congressional District. Congressman Thanedar is passionate about fighting to improve the lives of hardworking families. Prior to being elected to Congress in 2022, Congressman Thanedar served in the Michigan House of Representatives. At the state capitol, he helped pass the largest increase in per pupil funding for Michigan public schools. Please welcome Shri Thanedarji.
Well, I think I'm good here. How's everybody doing? Yeah? So it's really welcome to Washington, D.C. As the fifth Indian American congressperson, we've achieved a new high watermark for. Now, I often feel I may be the most unlikely person to be here in the United States Congress. I was in India. I grew up, born in Karnataka, in Belgaum. Even though I'm a Maharashtrian, but I lived in Karnataka, grew up in there. 6 sisters, a brother. My father retired very early. I was 14 years old, and as an older son, I felt a responsibility to take care of the family when the family fell into financial hardship. And I think you can understand the Indian culture and the son and the older son that has to take care of the family. So while I was in college, I graduated from high school when I was 14, and while I was in college, I worked as a janitor to help my family succeed. And then I was in a State Bank of India as a cashier back in Bijapur in Karnataka. And then worked in Baba Atomic Research Center in Mumbai, working as a health physicist. And then I felt that coming to the United States would help me bring my family out of poverty. And that's what motivated me. So I applied for studies. And I got an admission for PhD program in University of Akron to do my PhD in chemistry. At the time, many years ago, I was planning to work on electric vehicles and electric batteries. So all I needed to do was, I had the admission to the university, and some of you may identify with this. So all I needed was a student visa. And back in those days, there was no appointment, so you had to go to the American Embassy in Mumbai and stand in line. The sooner you go, the quicker your number would come, because they'll only take so many people in a day. So I went there at 5 a.m., 5 o'clock in the morning. I stood outside the American Embassy. And by 11 a.m., my number got called. So I went to the embassy, and I was standing in front of a window where the consulate person, her name is Virginia. So she was across the window asking me questions. I studied in a Marathi medium. I didn't know very good English then. And I didn't understood half of what she asked me. But I told her that I'm going to US because I want to work on my PhD. And she told me she is going to deny my student visa. And it really caused a lot of hurt, because this meant a lot, that my whole life, this was a life-changing event to be able to come to America. And I've never done this before in my life, but I fell down. I lost consciousness, and I was down on the floor. When I gained consciousness and opened my eyes, I saw Miss Virginia standing with a cup of water. but no visa. After that, you can't go and get a interview anymore. All you can do is submit your papers with more evidence. So I got some more information and reapplied a week later. Then they tell you, come back at 4 o'clock, we'll let you know. And at 4 o'clock, I go there, I see the letter on the top that say the same stamp, rejected, visa denied, Virginia's signature. So I called my professor in the US, I said, can't get my visa, I need your help. And so he sends a nice letter. And I attached that to my application, submit it again. I go at 4 o'clock in the evening, same letter again, her signature, very familiar stamp, visa rejected. The fourth time I pull out some more evidence to help my case, and she rejects my visa for the fourth time. I'm now unemployed, I'm struggling, I'm teaching, I'm doing tutoring in people's homes. I would go to students' home to tutor them, and that was my way of supporting my family. So a month goes by, and I'm looking at this stack of papers that Miss Virginia had rejected, and I said, I want to try one more time. But this time I have nothing new to give to Miss Virginia. So I take that stack of paper, resubmit it, and they say, come back at 4 o'clock. I say, okay. So I go there at 4 o'clock, and he says, give me your passport. And I said, why do you need my passport? And he says, I can't give you a visa if you don't have a passport. So I rush home, bring my passport, I get my visa. I said, how come Miss Virginia changed your mind? And they said, no, Virginia is not here right now. She's gone to America for vacation. And her assistant, who looked at your papers, thought your papers were perfect. And that's how I got a chance to come here. And I got my PhD, and I worked as a postdoctoral scholar at University of Michigan, doing more research on batteries and doing more innovation. And then applied for my green card. And I had this interview with this person in the green card office. And she was maybe 6 months pregnant. And I congratulated her, and we talked. And she interviewed me, and then I was waiting for my green card, and it never showed up. So I went to the immigration office, and I said, what's going on? Why am I not getting my visa? And they said, oh, your counselor, the person that's interviewed you, she's on maternity visa. And so I said, when will I get my green card? And they said, we don't know when she's coming back. She keeps extending her visa, her leave. And I just couldn't believe. So I said, cannot anybody else look at my papers? And finally, I was able to convince one of the other officers to take a look at my papers. She had sent out all kinds of inquiries and searches, and all of those results had come in, but there was nobody to look at them so they can approve my green card. So this person was kind enough, and he looked at my papers, approved, and I got my green card. But today I see a lot of people have issues with green card. Green card lines are, people are waiting for 10, 12 years. And this is something that I have experienced personally. And matters are becoming so difficult for families now. There is family separation, there is anxiety, there is stress because of the visa situation. And that's something that really I want to take upon and work on. So later on, I started a small business. The business grew. At one time, my business was worth about $200 million. It's a great investment for the $20 that I came into this country on. And created lots of jobs. And in 2016, I saw that my family is doing well, my businesses are doing well. I've achieved my American dream, but when I travel all across Michigan, I see many people, many Americans living at or below poverty level. In my district, in Detroit alone, 25% of the people live at or below poverty. And I saw that since I achieved my American dream, but many of the people in this great country that gave me so many opportunities can't achieve their American dream. And with that thought, I said, I'm not going to accumulate wealth anymore. I decided to sell my company, took some of that money, gave it to all of my employees. Not just the CFOs and not just the top managers, but every employee in my company received, not only they received profit sharing, but they received a portion of the sale proceed. And then I decided, if I can run a company, I can run a state. And with that in mind, I ran for the governor of Michigan. Not many people thought I could. As an immigrant, as someone that speaks with an accent, someone who looks different, speaks different. But I felt that I could make a difference in the lives of people in Michigan. I did not get elected, but I got 200,000 votes in that Democratic primary. And so after that, I decided to not go back to business, stay in public service, got elected to the State House, Michigan State House as a state representative. As a part on the appropriations, I passed two of the biggest budgets, two of the biggest education budgets, brought a lot of money to rebuild schools. I brought a lot of money to the district to rebuild mental health and mental hospitals, and created a lot of jobs in Michigan. And after that, when the congressional position opened up, I'm here. I'm serving on the Homeland Security. And it's ironic, that the person that had the most difficulty getting into the country, now I'm in charge of a ranking member on focusing on America's border security. And through that, I want to help and I also work and serve on the Small Business Committee. And with that, I want to help people get access to capital, people get access to and be able to start their own businesses, be financially independent, and succeed, get opportunities with federal government, contracting opportunities. So that's what I want to create across America, and certainly in my district in Detroit, Michigan. I also want to focus on not only border security, but making sure that we help our economy grow at a higher GDP than we have ever seen before. And the way to do that, I believe, is through immigration reform. We need a good, comprehensive immigration reform. We need higher H-1 visa quotas, because 800, I've talked to 700-800 different companies who have been asking for more skilled workforce. And the H-1 visa numbers are limiting the growth for our technology businesses. The people who come here, highly qualified people, we need to keep them here because our businesses need that. And there is a misconception that by allowing these foreign-born scientists to stay in the US is affecting American jobs. In fact, it does help increase American jobs by having the highly skilled people stay and work in the United States and help grow businesses. So I want to work on getting workers for agriculture industry, getting workers, not only the high-tech workers, but also people that can help in the agriculture industry. People can help in manufacturing industry, because currently one thing that I hear from all over the businesses is that they need more workers. They need more workers, and that's how we are going to be able to grow our economy at a higher pace than we have been doing. So that's one of my focuses. I also been asked to be a co-founder of the Congressional Hindu Caucus. You know, this is an organization that wants to fight against any kind of discrimination and hate. You know, we have hate and discrimination should have no place in America. Any kind of, you know, one of the greatness of the United States is our ability to practice the faith that we choose to practice. And that religious freedom is very, very important. And the Hindu community deserves that as much as any other religion. And the constant attacks on the Hinduism needs to be protested, just like we would protest attacks on Jewish religion. That's just like we would attack on Muslim religion. You know, every person has a right to pray the God that he or she wants to pray, and we need to have that. So I want to help protect the religious freedom of all of our communities, and that's why I agreed to serve on this caucus, congressional caucus that we'll soon announce. But it's so good to see all of you. Thank you for all you have done to achieve, you know, we are a country of immigrants. And I am amazed and thankful for what the immigrants have done to make this country the strongest democracy in the world and the best place in the world. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting this event, and thank you for inviting me. Before I forget, I want to introduce my wife, Shashi, who Shashi and I have been together for 24 years, and she is an amazing partner, and we are together in everything that we do. So I thank her, and thank you.
Your big hand. He's self-made man, and very, very proud of him. And he's the one when I approached him a couple of months back for the visa-related issue, particularly the grace period for the laid-off H-1B professionals. And he came forward and helped us. So thank you. And he's also on the subcommittee of the Department of Homeland Security. So thanks, Congressman Thanedar. So I would like to invite our think tank expert, Ilan Burman. He's going to talk about the I2U2. He's American Foreign Policy Councils. So thank you.
Well, thanks very much. I'll take just a couple of minutes because a lot of the points that I tried to make, it's beneficial to go later in the program because a lot of your points are already made for you, so it makes the job easy. Thank you very much to FIIDS, and thank you very much to the AJC for the invitation. My institution, the American Foreign Policy Council, focuses on national security and foreign policy. I head up all of our institutional research and analysis, and this is why, frankly, it's so interesting and invigorating for me to come talk about the U.S.-India relationship and the dynamism here, because it is a good news story at a time when we need them, frankly. And I want to just focus on three things with regard to India's emerging role and increasingly important role in shaping global security and the global order. And there's a saying that you have to know where you've been in order to know where you're going. So I think the proper way to think about this is to think about the past, and to think about the present, and to think about the future. And what I mean by this is that in the past, and in the recent past, and continuing into the present day, India has assumed an increasingly important role in the unfolding great power competition between the United States and China. This is a problem that, candidly, India saw coming long before the United States did. The United States spent a lot of years thinking that we could trade China into becoming a democracy. And in the process, I'm sad to say, we paid less attention than we should have been to our friends who were already democracies. We are having quite a wake-up call now. And it's a wake-up call that India is also experiencing, right? India has much more experience, but India is facing the China problem locally in the context of its efforts to serve as a brake on China's territorial encroachment along the common border in the Himalayas. Here, India understands, I think, very well what many in the West still don't, which is that unless China's ambitions are rebuffed, and rebuffed resoundingly, the PRC will be incentivized to seek more territory from other countries, and become more of a regional predator than it is now. The second, in this context, is what's happening regionally in the context of the Quad. And we heard the Assistant Secretary talk about the Quad and the potential there. And I think it cannot be overstated that the deterrent potential of collective action in the Asia-Pacific region is enormously important, because it begins to build the type of structures that we already see and we already take for granted, and frankly are acting so well in the context of Europe's new war. And so, as the doctors tend to say, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so the Quad in this context, I think, is a very important remedy. Moving to the present, what we see is that India is increasingly thinking globally, thinking extra-regionally, at potential partnerships beyond its periphery. That tendency was always there, but I think it's much more mature now, and it's much more promising. And here, I'm specifically thinking about the Middle East and the I2U2 economic and political partnership, which many have high hopes is going to evolve into more, is going to evolve into the Western Quad, the Western analog of the Quad. I just came back from a research trip to Israel, and I can tell you firsthand that national security experts there are entirely focused on this potential, entirely focused on the idea that the Western Quad is a real thing. They're eager to put meat on the bones of this partnership. So I see that as a really important project for the now. And then for the future, I think it's necessary to talk about India's potential role, particularly in the context of the Abraham Accords, in the context of the war of ideas that's taking place in the Muslim world. And here, just a couple of words about the Abraham Accords. I think many in Washington, it took us a long time to figure out if the normalization agreements that Israel signed with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Morocco 2.5 years ago were a real thing. I can tell you, as someone who's spent a lot of time traveling the region, they are absolutely real, they're absolutely thriving, but they're also uneven. They're uneven because they need to be strengthened. They need to be strengthened not just in economic terms, but in political terms, in cultural terms, in people-to-people relations terms, and they need to be broadened by bringing in new partners. And here, I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about India. And this brings, in the context particularly of counterterrorism. India, unfortunately, is all too familiar with the scourge of terrorism as a result of its fraught relationship with Pakistan. But India's potential contributions aren't often enough discussed in the context of what India can do robustly at an international level to aid the counterterrorism fight. And so here, I'm a big fan of concepts that are easy to understand. And so I'll leave you with one. The law of large numbers. I don't know if you guys know what the law of large numbers is. The law of large numbers is that when you have a large number, even a small fraction of a large number is still a large number. And so what I mean by this is that India's population is so large that simply the fact that India's Muslim population is something like 14% of the total makes India the third most populous country in terms of Muslims in the world. It gives India a voice. It gives India a stake in making sure that there is greater security cooperation, there's greater political cooperation. And so I'll end by saying that I sincerely hope that as we look to the future, as we look to move the relationship into an even stronger position, this is an area that we can explore more fully. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nissim Rubin. I'm the Assistant Director for Asia at the American Jewish Committee, and very proud to work with Khanderao for this event. AGC is supporting. And I should acknowledge Dr. Suhas Desai. Dr. Desai, thank you. You are a dear friend. You got us the room through your Congressman, Andy Barr. So you are Secretary of U.S. Security Council and a big supporter of FIIDS. So thank you very much for your friendship and support. And again, Khanderao, you are a big brother, so looking forward to many more engagements with you. It's my privilege to introduce Avi Jorish, a very senior official from the Bush administration in counterterror. He was the one that put in place the US government mechanism of tracking terror financing. So all of us owe Avi a lot. I think India also, there's a lot of cooperation in this terror financing tracking. So you are the founder of that initiative. Avi, thank you. I would like you to speak about your book, Thou Shalt Innovate. Many of us are from the tech sector, and how Israel is a leader in innovation. So your book, Thou Shalt Innovate, is very popular. If you can speak about that. Everybody spoke about the other topics, so please, Avi, come to the podium.
It's okay. First, let me begin by thanking Nissim Rubin at AJC and FIIDS for hosting this amazing event. Friends, I want to just open your mind to the power of technology. And I want you to think about the year is 2023. I see many of you with these little smartphone devices. Does anyone remember when this thing came out? What's that? In '86? Any other guesses? Actually came out in December 2007. So it hasn't even been 15 years. These little devices are really part of our bodies. I want you to think about what's going to happen in 15 years. The year is now magically, we fast forward to 2030. My friends, by 2030, we're going to have a human on the moon full-time and on our way to Mars. By 2030, as a result of the relationship between India, the United States, Israel, and other leading countries in science, we're going to solve many cancers. Tourette's, essential tremor, Parkinson's, gone. By 2030, the planet is going to have many, many more electric vehicles. We will have perfected driverless cars. None of us are going to be driving our cars anymore in a very, very short amount of time. By 2030, I'm glad you're all sitting, by 2030, a computer is going to process faster than a human brain. Now, what does that actually mean? It means as a result of the speed of a computer, we're going to have thoughts that we've never had before because we as humans have been constrained by the size and by the speed of our brain. Now, what does that really mean? It means that we're going to start solving some of the major grand global challenges that we as humanity have been facing for the last many thousands of years. Friends, in the next few years, we're going to start tackling climate, water security, food security, artificial intelligence, space, a country, which your country in India really has played a major role, major role. Friends, we are on the precipice of a brand new era. We've had 4,000 years of recorded history. By 2100, that's a year that many of us and our children will get to experience. We're going to experience 20,000 years of human change. Truly, the planet will not be recognizable in the years ahead. And as we look at some of these grand global challenges, India and Israel and the United States are playing a massive role in tackling these challenges. I'll just spend a few minutes talking about it, and then we'll look ahead. Let's look at just space. Space. India is one of the leading powers when it comes to space. So too is Israel and the United States. Truly, in the years ahead, we're going to actually leave the cradle of civilization, planet Earth, and we're going to inhabit other planets. That's not a figment of our imagination. We're truly on our way to making that happen. Friends, this is happening. India is a leader when it comes to putting satellites in the skies. So is Israel and the United States. I want to jump to education. 10 years ago, all of us in this room went to a traditional school, learned how to read, write, and do math. About 15 years ago, a man by the name of Salman Khan, whose family came from India and Bangladesh, created an amazing piece of technology called the Khan Academy. The Khan Academy helps you learn math, science, physics, chemistry, biology, economics, going all the way from kindergarten to PhD level math. I mean, truly, the only thing stopping us from becoming the greatest form of ourselves is our desires. I'm going to share with you a brief story, with your permission. My son today is 12 years old. Not today, but just turned 12. And 5 years ago, he was struggling with his education. The school that he was going to wanted to send him away. They said he could not do math, he couldn't do science, he couldn't do reading. And a good friend of mine, actually from India, he says to me, chatting about our kids, my kid, your kid, all of us are parents, or many of us in the room are parents, we all talk about our children. He says to me, he goes, Avi, you know my daughter? She just finished calculus. I said, okay, that's very nice. How old's your daughter? She's 12. I said, wow, your kid's got to be a genius. He says to me, my kid's not a genius. She's using the Khan Academy. I said, what's the Khan Academy? Well, it's this app, it's free, Bill Gates uses it to teach these kids math and science. I said, I'm going to try this. Get back home to Washington, D.C. Okay, we'll get there in a second. I've waited all this time. All good. Math and science. And I got to tell you, 6 years later, my child is literally gone from knowing no math and no reading to being not a genius in math, but truly having a high level of math. Now, water. India is going to struggle with water in the next 10 years. 40 out of the 50 US states are going to struggle with water in the next 10 years. And Israel, a country that I come from, has truly solved the water cycle. Friends, Israel, a country that's 60% desert, is now a net exporter of water. And we've used this leveraging desalination, drip irrigation, recycling of wastewater, and the 2-button toilet. These are all innovations that I truly believe that India can leverage in order to become a massive water superpower. Friends, let me end by really giving you one last tidbit. I want you to look to the person to your left, and I want you to look to the person to your right. And the only people that are going to move the dial on the issues that we collectively care about, which is a better education for our children, water security for our citizens, space travel in order to make life on planet Earth better, are you and me and our children. And as we look ahead, friends, the only thing that we can do to truly make the world a better place is work together. And in that vein, I want to thank the AJC. I want to thank FIIDS for the work that they do here on Congress. And in terms of really moving the dial on the issues that we care about, I look forward to working with each and every one of you on truly making the world a better place on our behalf, on behalf of all of our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. So, lot of people appreciated this event that we put together as one of the very effective for Indian diaspora, etc. And then they try to give the success to me or my team. But actually, it is not just us. There are many people who traveled this journey and made a ground and the road for us. And one among them very prominent, is a Dr. Suhas Desai. So he's the one, he's a Vice President of US India Security Forum. With Nissim, we went to India as a delegation. We met Prime Minister Modi ji, Jaishankar ji, and many other dignitaries. He's a silent worker, not only worker, but he's a force behind Indian-American community and its influence in Washington, D.C. He does not stay in Washington, D.C., but you will see that whenever there is a need, that he's here, and he really delivers, not just for us, but there are a lot of times when voting comes or etc., he really puts his influence in. So I would like to welcome him. And he also has been close friend and influence on Andy Barr, who actually gave this wonderful facility. I'm really thankful of Congressman Andy Barr. I would like to welcome Dr. Suhas Desai.
Thank you, Khandarao. Ladies and gentlemen, the hour is late, so I'm just going to be speaking for 60 seconds. So first of all, I think those of you who were here for the last 2 days, what a wonderful 2 days for the Indian-American community as a whole, Indian diaspora as a whole, and what 2 wonderful days for the US-India strategic partnership. Yesterday, the India Caucus co-chair had the event, and now FIIDS, with the involvement and active role of Khandarao and his entire team, we must really congratulate them to put this together. We were on the team organized by Nissim and the agency, as Khandarao mentioned, and we had a wonderful visit to India. And now, with this FIIDS event, as many of the speakers mentioned, that this is a great opportunity for us to work in future together, and together what we can achieve in this US-India strategic partnership in various ways, and that becomes in return important for the Indian diaspora over here too. So I think we should all keep that in mind, work together so we can advance this even further, and we should have double the number of congressmen. There are a lot of congressmen and today, but we could go much further if we kept up this unity throughout, keeping that in mind and doing things together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Desai. I wanted to welcome Hashim Wadiar, who is author. He's a very prominent Afghani American. He has been spokesperson for one of the initiatives during the last few years. And I would like to just make a few comments, and then this will be the ending one. So.
Thank you very much. A very good evening to all of you. My name is Hashim Wadiar, former spokesperson of United Nations, now in United States. Thank you very much for organizing this great event, and also thank you for inviting me, actually. I'm very happy that India is one of the largest country in the world and a big brother in the region. But we expect in the region that India to play a bigger role for the safety, security of the region, for the economic prosperity, technology, the medics, and the democracy. These are all the great models that India has in the region, and we expect India to play the role in the region, what's going on in Afghanistan, unfortunately, and some countries in the region producing and sending terrorism to the world. But India is doing the other way, sending technologies and technologists to the world, sending medics, and also bringing in more tourism to India. So I'm very happy the way that India is growing, and congratulations for what India is doing and what India is achieving.
I just wanted to summarize this event as one of the great initiative from Indian American community point of view. If you really see from the summary of the event that we had 68 delegates, 73 total offices, means in-persons, and then evening event putting together so we could reach out to that. We approached three main issues: immigration, US-India relations, and then religious phobia, or the biases against traditions of Indian origin. So these are the three things that we raised. We identified some of the legislative actions. We did discuss with the staff members and the Congress representative. It was very well received. We also got some feedbacks and how we can build on it. Why we set this right now is that 118 Congress started 3 months back, and it will continue for 2 years. And we want to make sure that we take a lead and then approach and set the agenda from our point of view. It takes a lot of time to get any kind of a bill introduced or the resolution introduced. So it is something that we put forward, and we have to work to that. So this is a sort of a beginning, and it is not an end of our advocacy point of view. So this is a beginning on these particular issues. So it is not something come here and submit to them, but it is now working on those issues with them for coming future. So that's our commitment to the community and everyone. With this happy note, I would like to end the event because I'm not sure that David Schweikert, it's sorry that all the programs, this one, he waited outside and then he had to go to the radio interview. But also it's not fair that I keep everyone waiting. So we will end the program. However, we'll be ready just in case he comes. We'll make a call out to all of you. You will be out enjoying food. We'll have to take, probably we can take the dishes inside. We can do, or we can take the mic inside. But I would like to make sure that we do appreciate he coming here. He's a very great friend of India. He's a business person. He has been here in India many times. He's a frequent traveler and great supporter on many issues that Indian American face. And that's why it is very important if he comes back for me to ask him to share his thought process, and also I will take my little bit authority I may have to call you in again and appreciate his appearance. With this, let's adjourn. I would like to again thank Congressman Andy Barr for providing this facility. I wanted to appreciate Dr. Suhas Desai, our co-partner or the supporting organization, American Jewish Committee, NISIM. We go a long way. We work together. It's a good partnership that Indian Americans and Jewish committee that, or the council or the community that we have. There are a lot of issues that we work together, and with this solid foundation, we'll move forward. And thank you, everybody. The most important that I have volunteers from like say 20, almost 20 different places. 68 volunteers came, work very hard, like putting this event together, especially Saili, Madhuri, they have been working on the meetings, Prasad Korane working on the delegation with Gaurav and others. Then we have lot of people who couldn't come, like Harish Kanpal is there, or Pranay is there. They have been doing remotely a lot of these activities. We had local support. Ashwin Reddy, Srinivas Bhaskara is like our Hanuman there, so they're here. They did all the logistics part of it. Our Ravindra ji, Himanshu ji, they did the mobilization locally. That was very awesome. Narsimha ji is our elder brother. He's always there. He guides whenever we ask him. He's there, supportive for all the purposes. So we have all the volunteers worked a lot of, like we can say that day and night to put everything together. And it was so well, they were orchestrating, handling. It was so amazing for me to see that how they were, like all the processes, everything, they were working out and make it really effective. I have people, remotest part, they came and participate over here. I really appreciate that. There is in order to participate in advocacy, each one of us have to be advocate and study the issues, be prepared, go to the details. So many of our delegates, they actually went through the legislative. They challenged me that why this, is it correct, is not correct, and all this. So that is something that is amazing. And now they all, it's a asset to the community that now all these people, 68 people, they understand how this advocacy works. Not only that, how the resolutions are made, bills are made, what are the issues, how are the committees, how we need to work and all that thing. So that is something that is from community point of view, Indian American community point of view, it is a great asset. Some of the young people came from Arizona, right, and it is going to be asset for them for a long term. I hope that they will participate in this process, study, go into the political sciences or everything, and hopefully some of additional members would be either in the administration or in the elected. So finally, to conclude, we also focus on the capacity building. And one of the initiatives, or the two initiatives that we have are the internship. One internship is the congressional internship, and second one is the high school internship. So high school internship is our cohort program, 68 registered, so it is going to be 2.5 months. It's every week there will be assignment and working together and a field assignment, etc. And congressional internship is much more on the congressional work. Either they could be our side, that is the FIIDS representing congressional work, or could be absorbed in the internship at the Congress. So over there we need some influence and work, because it's very competitive market to get the interns in the congressional offices. So we got like a still soft commitment, but we are going to work on that to get more and more, at least the interns placed, and we'll request our those who came Congress representative to help us out into that. With this note, I would end. Thank you, everybody. Let's have food.